Hi guys, my name is Michael. Welcome back. So it's been a while since I did one of these videos, but don't worry, I'm back now. And I've got a really interesting episode for you guys today. So today I want to talk about the state of Texas, or the great state of Texas, like the people will say it in the United States. And I want to talk about what the Lord is doing with this state, and how this state is growing from being a state to becoming a nation, because there's so much going on in Texas. Regarding Texas, we're hearing a lot of things being said about Texas in the news, and a lot of people might not be able to wrap their head around what is happening. But I want to share with you a high level overview of what is going on behind the scenes with Texas and what the Lord is doing with Texas, just so that you get a full understanding of what you're seeing play out, in the physical right now. And it's so important that we understand this, because we're seeing in the news a lot is being said about Texas. A lot of companies are moving to Texas. Texas is starting new things. They're creating a lot of new things, and so all these things are moving parts, of something that the Lord is doing with Texas, which is bringing Texas to a point where Texas is going to be like a nation, even though it is part of the United States. So let's get right into it. So before I go into, just talking about Texas, I just want to give you a brief overview of what is going on with the United States behind the scenes. Earlier this year, I did a video, and in that video, I talked about the fact that, I saw a vision where the Lord showed me that, I saw a communique, rather, leaving a place of authority in the spirit. And when I took a look at what was written in that communique that was going out to different parts of the United States, albeit in the spirit, I saw in it that it was written 20 years of downturn approved for the United States. So what this means is that the United States has come into a 20-year period where a lot of things are just going to be going south in the United States. So what you are seeing regarding the United States right now is really the best you're going to see for a couple of years. So from here on out, things are going to be going south. So there's going to be a lot of downturn economically, financially, militarily, status-wise. Everything regarding the United States is going to take a dip as we move forward into the later part of this year and even next year. So that is the backdrop behind the scenes. But in the midst of all this, downturn, in the midst of all this darkness that is coming to the United States, there's going to be a bright spot in the United States, and that is where Texas comes into play. Now, if you remember, in the land of Egypt, when the Lord was about to do the wonders in the land of Egypt, the Israelites were in Egypt at that time, and the Lord made a place for them called Goshen, which was a settlement for the Israelites, where even though they were inside of Egypt physically, geographically, but everything that was happening inside of Egypt was not affecting the people that were based in Goshen. And so that is the way Texas is going to be like in the United States. A lot is going to be going on in the United States. I'm talking about weather, climate, so many things, floods, so many things are going to be happening, economic downturn, crash. A lot will be happening there, but those things, will not affect Texas. So Texas will be shielded. Texas will be protected from a lot of things that will be happening in the United States. There's going to be drought. There's going to be famine. So, but Texas is going to be that bright spot. And if you look at the book of, I think it's Exodus, if you see how Goshen was protected during the time of the wonders in Egypt, a lot was going on in Egypt, but the people in Goshen were experiencing a totally different thing, even though they were physically in the same location. And that is the way it's going to be like with Texas. The people in Texas will be experiencing something different from the people, in the other part of the United States. And that is how Texas is going to, that is what Texas is going to be like, as we move forward, as we go further. So if you take a look at the news, you will see that a lot of things are this is already in motion, because you see a lot of businesses are moving away from different parts of the United States, and they are fixing their headquarters or their tax base in Texas. Now, a lot of people might say, it's because Texas has got a more business friendly climate, taxes and all that. That is one thing, but this is also a spiritual movement. Do you get? all these companies moving to Texas, Tesla, Oracle, Caterpillar, Chevron, all these guys, moving or, placing their bet fully on Texas. Some companies are actually moving from different parts of the US into Texas, while some other companies that were in Texas and had some other bases outside of Texas are moving everything fully into Texas, right? Because there is a form of safety in Texas, and that safety that companies are feeling, in Texas is not just physical; it's also spiritual. It is a manifestation of the spiritual climate around Texas. Do you get what I'm saying? So if you notice, recently Elon Musk moved Tesla away from Delaware into Texas, because they had issues, with in Delaware, so they had to move into Texas. And when they moved into Texas, the issues they were facing in Delaware was resolved in Texas. Do you get what I'm saying? So all those things are spiritual indications. They are physical indications of things that are happening behind the scenes. And so we need to understand that. I want to just give you a good picture of what is happening right now, because a lot of things in the world, they often repeat themselves. They often repeat themselves. If you take a look at the book of Ecclesiastes, the Bible says what has happened before will happen again. So and there is a version that says God does the same things over and over again. So but if you take a look at it, say what has happened before will happen again. So in reality, the future is actually the past, and the past is actually the future. So if you want to predict the future, you have to be acquainted with the past as well. Do you get? Because what has happened before is what will happen again. So what is the period that we are in right now has happened before. And this is more like the 1930s. So right now in 2024 in the United States, what it feels like is like the 1930s. So the things you saw in the 1930s are going to replay themselves again in 2024 and beyond. So it's important to understand those things, how things played out in the 1930s. And I just want to give you a little bit of examples here. For instance, if you take a look at the year leading into the 1930s, 1929 was when they had the stock market crash that began what we now know as the Great Depression. So the stock market crash in October of I think it was October of 1929, and then we went into the 1930s, where there was all this Great Depression happening. So many things going on in there, and there was also a famine in the 1930s. There was something called the Dust Bowl, which created a famine, drought, and the entire United States really was how will I put it, was a bust. But there was a bright light in the 1930s. Everywhere was really not good in terms of economy and economic activity. The only place that was having a form of economic boom was California. So in the 1930s, the United States was facing an economic crisis in the whole country, but California had had economic activity. So a lot of Americans were moving. This is something they call the Okies. People from Oklahoma. A lot of people were moving to California to look for jobs, to find some sort of economic activity to feed themselves and their family, because they were suffering. There was no food in the United States, because of the drought, the famine. And so California was like a bright light at that point. So in this time right now, the same thing is going to happen again. But this time, Texas is going to take the place of California. So the way California was in the 1930s, where everyone was streaming to California, and the Californians at that time were looking at other people coming from other parts of Americans like refugees. That is the same way it's going to be right now. It's going to come to a point where the people in Texas are going to be so protective of their state, they wouldn't even want people from outside of Texas to come into Texas. Does that make, I hope I'm making sense. So the same thing that happened in the 30s, where California was the bright light, is going to happen again. But this time, Texas will be the bright spot. And a lot of people are going to be streaming. People are going to be moving from New York, from Maryland, from Washington, from all those places, from Illinois, Michigan. They are going to be streaming towards Texas. And it's going to come to a point where Texas is actually going to start putting restrictions on people who can come into the states. So even though you're an American, even though you're a citizen of America, you will not be it will not be straightforward for you to leave or for you to move to Texas in the near future. So that is why it is an opportunity now. The fact that you can leave your state and just fly into Texas, into Dallas, into Austin, it is a privilege that will not be available in the future, because they're going to become very protective of their state, the state of Texas. So that is something we need to understand. So you're going to see a situation where Americans in America will be like refugees. You know the way they're treating the people at the southern border where they want to come into the US, you have to line up, you have to show this and that. That is how it will be when people are trying to come into Texas in the future. So you need to keep that in mind. You need to keep that in mind as we go further. So yeah, like I said, it will not be straightforward to come into Texas. You're going to need like special paperwork. You're going to need to show ID and everything. Even people who are from Texas who move outside and trying to come back in, you're going to have to show your ID and everything. So make sure that if you're living in Texas right now, you've got all your identification, your state ID, whatever it is they give you guys out there to identify that you belong to that state. I don't know what is used there, but make sure you have all those things in order, because it is the times ahead is going to be, there's going to be serious checks for people, for before people can come into Texas. So you need to understand that. So what am I saying right now? This is just a call for people. If the Lord has been telling you about moving to Texas, if the Lord has been, nudging you, telling you about, going to start something in Texas, maybe buying a house in Texas or moving to Texas at all, let this be a confirmation for you, because in the future, it will not be straightforward to get into Texas. Do you get it? They're going to be protective about the jobs in Texas, the jobs in Texas. And you see these companies moving to Texas very soon. Those companies will not be able to employ from outside of Texas. They will have to employ the people in Texas. The way a country would behave. Do you get? That's why this video title is called The Nation of Texas, because they will be so protective. The way a country would be protective of its citizens, say hire my citizens first before you hire any other person. That is the way it's going to be in Texas. Those companies moving in Texas will be forced to hire the people in Texas first before they consider any other person. So you need to understand that in the future, there's going to be, while everywhere in the United States will be facing some sort of darkness, be facing some sort of downturn, Texas will be a bright light. And like every bright light in the midst of darkness, everybody will go towards it. People in New York are going to be hearing that, oh, things are better in Texas. Things are good in Texas. People in California are going to be hearing, oh, life is better in Texas. Things are better. There are jobs in Texas. So that news will spread around the United States. So you're going to see streams. You're going to see U-Haul vans all facing Texas. You're going to see U-Haul, what is it called, U-Haul, or all those vans, all of them will be facing towards Texas. So that is something we need to understand. So now the wisdom right now is, now that it's still easy to move in, to settle in, do that now. There's no need to wait any further. There's no need to wait. If you're someone that, the Lord has put it in your heart to move to Texas, He has talked to you about it, things like that. Let this be your confirmation. And, there's no need to wait any further, because Texas is going to be a Goshen, in the coming days and in the coming months. So it's important and if you live in Texas already, you want me, you might want to strengthen your stakes. If you've got properties, if you're doing strengthen your stakes, because Texas is going to be booming in the future. So I just thought I'd bring you guys this word, just so that you understand. I spoke about this, early this year about Texas, but, something came up again. And also there is a news that I forgot to put in the slides. It's about, I probably will add it in the editing. The stock market. So as you know, the stock market, which is the New York Stock Exchange and the NASDAQ, are based in New York. Texas is about to start its own stock exchange. So the Texas Stock Exchange, or the Texas Stock Market or something, they're about to start their own. So you're going to be seeing all this sort of news come out of Texas. You like Texas is about to start its own, investigation, arm. They're just going to be doing their own thing, they're going to have their own things in Texas. So it's going to be like a nation within a nation, if I can put it that way. Texas is going to be like a nation within a nation. Right now, Texas is the 8th largest economy in the world. Very soon they're going to surpass California. Those things are already done already. So very soon Texas is going to go further. It's just going to get better for Texas. So all the losses, all California losses are going to be Texas gain. So it's going to get better for Texas. It's going to get better. Things are going to get better for Texas. That is the way it is. So it's important for you to understand that. Do you get? It's important for you to understand that. So I just thought I'd bring you this word today. If you like videos like this, do click on the like button, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye for now.